Okay. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Um, I said 2:37. It's 2:38. Whatever. But yeah. So this is episode. What is it? Three? Episode three of our little series we're kind of putting together.
Do you count Tiller and I bitching about Scholar as episode 1 or episode 0?
I think that's the pilot episode. I
All
would
right, well then,
say.
yes, this is episode 3.
Just
Yeah.
make that every episode.
I mean, at a certain point, it does kind of get that way. Not gonna
At a
lie.
certain point, it's just living with the two of us.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think we leave a good enough impression that people are willing to listen to us bitch for hours. You know, is what it
I'd
is.
like to think that. I don't think I can bring myself to believe it, but you can
Yeah.
believe it for both of us.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm Ardent. And I guess we're doing this on my stream, but I don't think that it's mine. This is my series as much as it is like our series, everyone's series. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about Phys Ranged going into Endwalker, changes that are gonna be happening, and what what we like, what we don't like, stuff like that. And with me today are let's
All
go
right,
in.
this
Yeah,
is where people talk.
this is where everyone else talks. Yeah.
Let's go reverse alphabetical order this time. Really
Okay.
shake things up.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So is that me then, I guess?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I am Nekko Kaneko of Goblin, and I main Bard and play a bit of Machinist too, and never Dancer. But I don't hate it anymore. Just don't play it.
But I've experienced a lot of character growth on that front, so I'm willing to talk
Yeah.
about it on the show. Great.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I mean, I can appreciate that it's really good, or at least relatively speaking, really good.
You can appreciate that it is and has been meta defining.
Yeah.
An almost unhealthy extent, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
What's your second favorite color? Yeah, we're keeping this bit going.
Second favorite color.
Yep.
It's probably blue then.
Oh.
Go.
Cool. Cool.
Uh, as for me, as I'm sure you're tired of hearing by now, viewers, I'm Brad. What what qualifies me to be here? I played a little bit of Bard in an early Prague group of Ultimate Weapon, of Uwu, I suppose, in some small way that justifies me being here. Uh,
You progged E12.
oh right, I always forget I did that. Yes,
Yeah, we
I
all forget.
progged.
We all try
I
to push that out.
progged up to. I'm pretty sure I saw Lions on Bard during
Mm.
that awkward phase where I was swapped off of a healer.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was awkward for
and
everybody.
my second favorite color, I think this week it's going to be sage green.
Sage green.
Sage green, but I'm
Mm.
not playing sage next expansion. Don't you worry.
No worries. As far as my second favorite color,
No one asked.
okay. Moving on then. What did we want to talk about first? I guess since we all know Bard, I actually used to play a lot of Bard back in Stormblood.
Hmm?
Um, I think the hardest content that I ever did with Bard though was like Byakuo EX on content. Um, so it was like it was a hot minute. It's been a hot minute since I actually like did anything semi-serious with Bard. Um, so yeah, we could go ahead and just start off with that and kind of um, you know talk about experiences and stuff. If we're okay with me going up first, just a little bit, um, kind of, or I guess not. I don't want to go first just yet. I want to talk about Bard getting
I want
like
to
what's
bounce off
changed
of
and
what
stuff.
other people say.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
oh, so to I guess real quick before we jump into Bard, just
Hmm?
to keep consistent with the other episodes. Bard isn't, or rather, Phys Ranged isn't really getting any general overall changes.
Yeah.
In case anyone was wondering, uh, all they got was that one little bit of hey, magic weapons and physical weapons are coming to parity in
Mhm.
Endwalker. So now,
Shorter troubadour and
hmm,
technician cooldown and whatnot. I mean, it's small, but it's nice.
it is nice. That's not. I mean, that's not technically a
Yeah.
general change to Phys Range. It's just a trait that they all share in common. I think it's
Yeah.
88 all in together, but it is very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, as for Bard, we started doing this in the last episode. I think we should keep it going.
Mhm.
Explain Bard as if you're talking to a fresh-faced sprout. What is Bard in the game of Final Fantasy XIV?
How about we have Neko talk about this?
All right.
I mean, how basic are we talking here?
Like someone who
Slightly,
is picking
slightly
a
more
job.
than they have
Yeah.
a bow.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say they play music and they sing and they shoot arrows. Like that's. But yeah, no, I mean, Bard at its core is keep your dots up, rotate your songs, and use your cooldown abilities
hmm
pretty much with your main song, Wanderer's Minuet.
Would you say
Because
that
they
Bard
rotate
is?
through the songs.
Yeah. Where would you
Yeah.
say Bard is in terms of like overall damage compared to the other two Phys Range DPS?
I mean, for the most part, they were the lowest, and then they were. I think there was a point where they were above Dancer for a little bit in RDPS,
Mhm.
slightly. I mean, depended on fight. I think last I checked, Machinist was the lowest in like the current Echo Eden's Promise world, which is really sad because
Wow.
they need some love.
Yeah.
So it might be worth mentioning then because it is probably more pivotal to the Phys Ranged than any other role in the game. The distinction between what's called ADPS and RDPS.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
2 out of the 3 jobs in the physical ranged category are what you would probably categorize as a support job. So when trying to calculate or compare their damage, you're not so much looking at what they output all by themselves, hitting a dummy. You're looking at what they not only their personal damage, but the damage that they are adding to what everyone else is doing. So
Mhm.
all of Bard's songs add a damage potency up. It's different on each song. I want to say Wanderers is it's like 2% crit on Wanderers. Is that it? And then 1% damage on mages, 3% direct on armies.
I think that's right. Let me
Yeah.
double check. Yeah, it's kind of a, I mean, it's kind of a fire and forget kind of thing. Like if you're
Crit
playing the job
2%.
correctly anyway, you're keeping these buffs up.
Flat one
Right.
percent for mages. Flat 1% damage buff. Yeah. Wanderers is
Yeah,
2% crit.
yeah,
And then
Jesus
direct
is
hit
3
for
direct.
armies. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I would also point out, since it has been pointed out by other people, going into Endwalker, Bard is basically going to be the only dot job.
Yes.
So
Not quite.
Well,
not the only job with dots, but I think
they
you'd
have
be
more
hard
than one.
pressed. I think you'd
Yeah.
be hard pressed to find any other job in Endwalker.
That's as dependent on them
Yeah,
as Bard
that
for sure.
actually
Yeah.
cares about them as part of their kit, as opposed to like,
Yeah,
I mean, healers have dots, but hell, half the time it was just our weave space that we wanted them for.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I guess the only one that has to keep them up the entire fight, because doesn't Gunbreaker still have? I guess in Paladin still has two. They're
Black
not full.
Mage.
They're not full uptime
Yeah.
dots.
Black Mage, you want to keep your dot up as much as possible. I think
Yeah.
8 seconds is when you
Well,
can.
but they only have
Yeah.
one. I
Yeah, you're right.
guess.
You're right.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess what I'm angling more towards is, hey, Summoner doesn't have their dots
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and just in general, compared to the other DPS, by the way, ranged physical will always be doing less damage than any other archetype, strictly because there's no cast times and no range requirement really for. You don't basically you don't have to send melee range ever for any of your attacks to hit.
Right.
Um,
The theory
yeah.
being that as long as the boss is targetable in some way, you are doing as much damage as you could be at all times.
Mhm.
There's nothing to restrict you in, as far as what mechanics demand you do, whether the boss is forcing you to disengage. Phys ranges are supposed to have near complete uptime.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as such, there is a thing called range attacks that all range DPS have, which means they'll just be doing less overall. But yeah, with that out of the way,
Bard in Endwalker, then.
yeah,
Mm.
Do you want me to just run down the changes?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So first off, we mentioned that Bard has the song system. Right now, the way that song system works is you have 3 songs. They all last 30 seconds, and you cut off the last song 20 seconds in. So Bard's song rotation has always been 80 seconds long, 30, 30, and 20. The songs are now having their durations increased to 45 seconds, and the dots are also being increased from 30 seconds to 45 seconds, which is ridiculous. Um, so now the split is going to be 45, 45, 30, which is nice for Bard because 80 seconds is a really awkward unit to try and fit around things like raid
Oh
buffs.
yeah. Yeah, potion timing too.
Potion timing is also a nightmare, and like the Bard on top of all of the song buffs that they have an additional raid wide buff called Battle Voice, which increases the direct hit rate of everyone in your party except you. It's always kind of struck me as one of the more unpleasant fixes of I can't line up my own burst phases around my raid buffs. Like, well, we'll just make your raid buff not affect you. It's like,
Yeah.
thanks,
Well, they
Dad.
well they fixed one part of that issue.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They did at least make it so that you wished it was affecting you. Uh, Speaking of raid web buffs, their capstone ability in Endwalker, while we're talking about the songs, is a move called Radiant Finale. And the way this works is every time you start singing a song, you get a sticker. And these stickers are called codas. Uh, Once you have amassed a certain number of codas, you can output a 5% increase in damage party wide buff. It's a 90-second cooldown, but you're basically going to be holding it for 2 minutes every single time. You're going to be holding it for when you go back into the start of your 2-minute rotation, which is where your damage is highest. At least I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested to see, is if it's deemed better to hold it or just slam it on cooldown.
Um, the thing that I find the most interesting about it is, speaking as someone who's been practicing astrologian, um, obviously divination is not going to care about its seals in Endwalker. We've already talked about that on another episode, but
Yeah.
current divination, that button is dead to you until you have 3 seals. Doesn't matter what kind of seals you have. Radiant Finale can be hit anytime that you have at least 1 coda.
Yeah.
So things you're going to be able to optimize around things like heavy downtime or
Yes.
kill times by squeezing out the damage and not having half or 2/3 of a coda just sit there worthless.
Wait,
I
what
think
what
that's
did it
really
do
neat.
again? I was like spacing for legitimately no reason.
Should I start from the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah. How far back are we talking?
Rewind it just a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So the way Bard works is they get a sticker every time they start singing
Hmm.
one of their songs. And they have a capstone ability that lets them cash in those stickers for up to a 5% party-wide damage buff.
Okay.
It's a 90-second cooldown. So think of it as like a 5% divination.
Okay.
It is a 90-second cooldown, which means you can be putting it out basically
Every ley lines.
every time that you hit that third song,
Yeah.
which is armies. The question is number one going to be, are you going to be holding that for 2 minutes? Because basically the way Bard's rotation works right now is as you're getting ready to end your third song early and force go back into your first song, you are pre-prepping or pre-popping rather your personal damage buff, Raging Strikes, which you'll now be hitting twice as often, um, or kind of twice as often, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, but you want to be hitting that personal buff because it's going to be affecting when you reapply your dots.
Yeah.
The assumption is you're going to be hitting Radiant Finale before you go into the next song because you're reapplying your dots, you're hitting the song, which itself does damage, and then you're immediately getting that first coda back again, so you don't overwrite any stickers. But the thing that Nekko and I were just talking about before you zoned back in
Yeah.
is unlike divination, which can only be popped when you have 3 seals. Radiant Finale can be popped at 1, 2, or 3 stickers.
Just lower potencies, right?
Just lower potency. I
So
believe it's
yeah.
1%, 2%, or
No,
2%,
it's
3%, and 5.
It's 2, 4, and 5.
2, 4, and 5. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I think
Uh,
the two sticker use might have some merit.
That's also true. Yeah, just be popping it basically in line with your raging strikes.
Yeah,
Um,
it'll be interesting to see what's determined. And like you said, it could come down to the fight and kill time.
Yeah.
mm. It's interesting to see Bard have that level of sort of micro and macro optimization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that. I think that's the funniest thing about Bard and Endwalker. Just like after the job action trailer, you saw everything Bard was doing. You're like, oh, that got some cool new animations, but it didn't. You didn't see anything different. Like it
Mm.
didn't feel like the job massively changed. But then you like get all the tooltips released, and you see the dots are extended and the songs are extended and everything. And Bard actually has a lot that's kind of
Yeah.
there's a lot more thought going into how you're playing it. Coming off an Endwalker versus now, where it kind of
It's
plays
very
itself.
rigid.
Like, I don't know. Like, I I came into um, Shadowbringers really liking how Bard felt and how it played. And it I don't know. Like my love for the job definitely fell off pretty heavily. I guess partly because I just got better at the game at like in other aspects aside from just like pushing buttons.
Yeah,
And partly
that's
just
fair.
because
Definitely a
like
job for people who like pushing buttons.
Yes.
partly I mean yeah, and it's just like how do I put it? The job itself. Um, I love using bow archetype kind of classes. And Bard is very supportive, but it just I think part of it was just, and we'll talk about Apex Arrow in a second probably, but like Apex Arrow just always felt like such a weird button to me. And it definitely kind of dampened my feelings for how the job felt and how the job kind of played.
Yeah.
Because it's just such an awkward button. And
Wait.
yeah,
Oh no, sorry.
go ahead, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No. Well, I mean, the thing is, like with Bard, is it didn't change a ton going
Hmm.
from Stormblood to Shadowbringers. I mean, the dot proc rate was normalized, so
Yeah,
it's not based on crit anymore. It's like a 40% flat
Yeah,
chance.
40% flat chance on a lot of your actions. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's outside of that, the job. Even if you you play it in roulette, you sink down to 60. It's basically the same thing. I mean,
yeah.
uh,
It just feels bad.
straight shot isn't upgraded to refulgent arrow, and you don't get procs on imperial arrow. But like the core of the class, it plays the same. So it didn't really change a ton. Now these Endwalker changes, I mean, it's still the same base kit,
It's just lined
but
up so much better.
yeah, it
Yeah,
lines up a lot better. So
It
they're
feels a lot better.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to
yeah,
see how the changes kind of work. But I mean, I kind of get it.
yeah,
If because it's like I think it's still fun, but I can definitely see where it could kind of lose a bit of its luster, especially if
yeah.
you're not big on Apex Arrow. Which I
Which
Yeah.
mean,
what is Apex Arrow? Let's describe
Apex
that, shall we?
Apex Arrow is a line AOE that okay, how do I put it without trashing on it too hard? Um, so basically, whenever you're singing your songs, uh, every time you get that special bonus effect during your song rotation, it gives you a stack of repertoire, um, five at a time, and I believe it's at around like 50, right? Is
Uh,
where as the
so,
minimum.
sort of. Repertoire is procking your song abilities. You're talking about it's added to your soul gauge.
Yeah, and so yeah, the you get a stack of repertoire, and then whatever stack of repertoire you get converts to 5 soul gauge. If both of your dots end up proccing repertoire at the same time, you get 10 soul gauge. And I think to up to 50, I believe, is where the it starts at 50. Not up to
Yes.
50. It
I
starts at
don't think
50.
you can cash in Apex Arrow until you're at least 50 soul gauge.
Yeah,
uh, it says it's 20 on
20.
the.
Oh.
Is it that low? Wow.
So the
I
reason why
didn't.
we don't know is because no one ever cashes in at 20.
You hit it
Yeah,
at 100 or you don't hit it at all.
Yeah.
yeah, because
Uh,
it's horribly inefficient to do that.
yeah.
Your regular GCDs are stronger at that point until it's higher up in the gauge.
Hmm. Um, and they didn't disclose any sort of real math for like what the potency would be at any point in the soul gauge. So like it's really hard to tell. Well, it was hard to tell for me if like it was better to save it or to spend it um, slightly earlier just to get more apex arrows out. Um, I think people kind of came to the judgment that it's best at 100, right? So
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Currently, it's basically you fire at 100, or uh, you can fire it off at like 90, 95 if raid buffs are gonna fall off.
mm,
But other than that, yeah, you just go to 100.
yeah. And my issue with Apex Arrow is that, again, as stated earlier, both of your dots can proc at the same time. So what if at 95 you you get well, you get to 95 and the next dot proc is going to trigger like the full potency Apex Arrow. At which point you could pop it. Um, you could hit Apex Arrow, but like if both of your dots proc,
You
um,
will end up with 105 out of 100 and just lose that 5 extra soul gauge.
Yeah.
exactly. And that's not a lot, but like over the course of a fight, that can add up. You
Now,
know.
to illustrate that point just very quickly, or to illustrate sort of ways that could be fixed and ways it hasn't been fixed, one of the changes Bard is getting in Endwalker is they are now able to hold up to 2 charges of one of their off-global moves called Bloodletter?
Mhm.
Yes.
Bloodletter. Um, one of their songs, which again will last for 45 seconds now, is every time you get a stack of repertoire, meaning every time one of your dots does that special magical thing, it resets the cooldown of Bloodletter. So during that particular song, you are just spamming that button out. But in cases where both of your dots proc at the same time, you are losing that proc of Bloodletter. They fixed that in Endwalker. You'll be able to hold 2 now. They have not done that for Apex Arrow.
Mhm. And the easiest way I think to kind of fix that is to just alter the potency so that anything past 50 is like either diminishing returns or you just spend a flat 50 every time. Exactly the same way as what Dancer does now, and we'll get to Dancer, but that would make it a lot more comfortable to use, at least in my personal opinion. And you could potentially get more out of it under raid buffs um, if you were able to kind of force it to stay, at a certain level, at a certain point, um, like right before you pop all of your raid buffs at the same time. Um, but and that's my main gripe with Bard is just like it doesn't feel good to play. You buff everyone else so that they feel better about how their job goes, but you just don't do anything for yourself. Um, and it just for me it just felt really bad. Um,
Yeah.
This is an Astro main, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, but they get
yeah,
divinate. They get the
you
effect
you
of
buff yourself
divination.
with divination and like I mean, it's hard to compare Astro to Bard in my opinion, just because like,
Astra is really good.
well that, but also
This is an
like,
Astro main who runs with a black mage who doesn't like getting cards, so he gets to card
well,
himself, ladies
well,
and gentlemen.
to finish what I was saying is
Go
like,
ahead, sorry.
it's like the reason why Astro feels satisfying to play is because well, yes, you're buffing everybody, but also when you're able to time your heals properly and map everything out, um, that's what makes the job satisfying. Like you
Yeah.
perform your job well. The cards, the buffing is an aspect of it, but that's not the entire thing, right? As a bard, damage, buffing people, that is your entire kit. There's no getting around that. And so to know that you're buffing everyone except for yourself, it's like it's like that friend of yours in college that like is failing all their classes, but then like you're trying to cop a ride from somebody to get from like one place to another on a busy weekend for this person, and they're just like, oh yeah, sure, I got it, no worries, I'll deal with it later. Like I'll deal with the consequences later kind of thing. It's like it feels bad, just like you feel bad watching them like screw themselves over you
Yeah.
know
But I'm starting to understand why you were so much higher on Bard at the start of Shadowbringers than at the end of it.
yeah,
Well, they just didn't have any buffs at the beginning.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
none of their
Oh
songs did
man.
no,
jack shit.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. And so like the changes to it, like it's a start, but I definitely think there's a lot more that can be done to make the job just feel better. Like Dancer came into Shadowbringers being like, "Oh yeah, I'm here to buff everybody," and it's like everyone instantly forgot that Bard existed, pretty
Well,
much.
and I think that was part of their them missing the mark on the balancing, or
Yeah,
maybe it seems like they kind of underestimated how much people who played Bard like the buffing aspect,
yeah.
because I think that was a lot of the feedback was like, what the hell, Bard
Like
is here to support people, and we're we have one buff,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
at
And the
least
weird thing
one
is,
damage buff, but yeah.
Bard has been, because I mean, let's talk about this in terms of like different niches that each of the Phys Ranged jobs is supposed to occupy.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like Bard was, at least before Dancer came out and you just had Bard and Machinist. Machinist was the higher personal damage job and had its own share of fucking juggling.
Yeah.
But Bard was always the utility one. He was the one with the refreshes. He was the one with the Palisades. He had all of
Esuna.
these interesting utility abilities, and he still has the SNO. But I feel like a lot of the utility abilities have been sort of bled away over time,
Mhm.
which is one of the reasons why I am kind of excited to with the way it's looking in Endwalker, because to my mind this is the first time where it looks like they've really doubled down on what they've turned Bard into and are trying to make this version of Bard work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Between making sure that the dots line up with all raid buffs, between making sure that your bloodletter procs aren't getting constantly overridden.
yeah,
um, we didn't even talk about it while we were talking about Apex Arrow. They did double down on Apex Arrow, which was the capstone
yeah.
in
At
the current
it's
expansion.
80, right? Like
Yeah,
80 soul gauge.
it's
Go ahead. Sorry.
oh yeah, it's at 80. I believe at 80 soul gauge.
Yeah. Minimum 80.
Using Apex Arrow will unlock a new combo action afterwards, which I'm trying to remember what it's called. There it is, Blast Arrow. And that one does have a flat potency.
Yeah.
No soul gauge required for that.
Except for the fact that you need soul gauge to proc it.
Yeah, but you're
You
doing
do
that
need
anyway.
Yeah.
you do need soul gauge to proc it, but at least as far as I understand, you then have 30 seconds to choose when
Yeah.
Blast Arrow
Oh,
comes out.
Yeah,
well,
I do like that aspect of it.
that's good.
um, which is actually
I
it's
like that.
part and parcel with a different change that they've made, which is we keep talking about procs. This is the job to play if procs are your bread and butter.
Hmm.
As you're spamming out your main DPS button, which is Burst Shot, you will occasionally gain a stack of a buff called Straight Shot Ready, which is what allows you to use Refulgent Arrow if you're above at level 70 or above, which is just a stronger baseline GCD. You're looking to put those out. Um, in current Shadowbringers, that buff of Straight Shot Ready lasts for 10 seconds. In Endwalker, it's going to last for 30. Um, that is a far more minor change than being able to use Blast Arrow anywhere in that 30-second period. I can only think of like one place in my experience where having Straight Shot Ready last for longer than 10 seconds would matter.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's for times where like the boss jumps away, but only for a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a very niche upgrade for
Yeah.
that one.
But the Blast Arrow one is good. It's weird that you still have to wade through the problems that Ardent has with Apex Arrow to get to the one
Yeah.
that fixes the problems he
Yeah.
has.
And like,
Yeah.
I think I forgot to even mention that was that was a big part of why I hate Apex Era 2 is just like there's no control. You have no control over when it comes out. Like
Which, to be fair, you have no control over a lot of Bard's kit. You don't
yeah,
necessarily control how many full
pitch
sets of
perfects.
Pitch
Yeah.
Perfect you're gonna have come out. Like
Yeah.
your burst phase could legitimately have less damage in it than one of your filler phases, depending on how kind the RNG gods happen to be for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but
But
that's
yeah.
Bard.
Yep.
It is the job you want to play if you like hitting a lot of buttons. It's
Yeah.
the job you want to
And
play if you like procs.
Oh yeah.
yeah. And as much as I kind of shit on Bard, it like I do think it's in a much better place now than it was beginning of the expansion. Because Bard Bard did less damage than Machinist without and it didn't do any buffs. It didn't buff anybody, so it's just like there was no point in
Yeah.
playing Bard. Like if you wanted to
Yeah.
play Bard, you might as well just play Machinist. It has a simpler kit, does more damage, and it's just more satisfying to play if you just want damage in general.
Yeah. If you took
So
Bard into content at the start of the expansion before they reverted the songs back to doing something, you were doing that because
you just like
you
Bard.
want, well, because you like Bard, or because you had found some way to make use of the two pieces of utility they still have in their kit, which is an Esuna, which I've only ever seen have any application in Savage on E8S, and
Mhm.
even then it was
Yeah.
just a little
Yeah.
bit of ease for the healers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shiva was the
Um,
only fight in Savage this expansion where you used it,
mm,
and then T was the
right, right.
other one.
And then they also have access to a buff called Nature's Min, which, ironically enough, Sage is getting next expansion. So fucking no party with a Sage in it should ever bother with a Bard. But no, Nature's Min is something that you could absolutely use
They
for certain
stack.
cheese
Yeah.
strats. Yeah, it's a buff that greatly increases the potency of healing actions performed on the target who has the buff.
Is it that's essentially
Uh,
I've never really noticed.
20% is big.
Yeah.
Okay.
20% is big, especially if you're combining it with, like, say,
Crit
Warrior's
low.
Thrill of, yeah, Crit Low, Warrior's Thrill of Battle. Because the important thing is, it's boosting the potency of actions on the target. So bards and scholars get along like bread and butter because Nature's
Oh
Min
yeah.
and Spread Lows just chef's kiss.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, just for boosting the mitigation on E12S, there's
Um,
the second phase use it pretty much on cooldown for
but
the
since
relativities.
But since at this point we're talking about, reasons to bring Bard into Eden's Gate, I guess it would be week oneers who were having some trouble with tumults in E4S.
I mean, there was no at the beginning. There was no reason to bring over Dancer. I mean, you wanted
Oh,
one.
right.
You wanted one physical range for the 1% buff. The RDPS provided by physical range is not really on the level of the other DPS, but
Mm.
the 1% party buff is
For
why
free is worth
is
it.
why you bring one.
Mm.
But
You bring them along because your parents forced you to.
And
yeah,
this is the Bard maid that has also a machinist in
well,
their group.
yeah, but that's because we're bad, and these are the jobs we're okay at. Although
I mean,
he's switching to Reaper, in Endwalker.
I could see Tans going Reaper and Walker for sure.
Yeah, yeah, he's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hope he's doing well. I both him and Saz, I just always feel like they're mad at me, even though like they have no reason to be.
I don't think so.
They're
They're just
probably just
They
intimidated
just
by your
they
coolness.
just don't talk, and that just
yeah.
makes me uncomfortable
I think
sometimes.
that, yeah, they're just lower key.
Yeah.
Have we forgotten anything? Oh, Bard's AoE spammable GCD is getting a facelift in terms of its animation and a slight bump in its potency.
Yeah,
Oh.
Going from
boring.
Quick Knock to Ladin's Bite. It
Yeah,
looks
it,
absolutely
it looks a
great.
lot better. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It looks
agree.
really cool. It's like
Yeah.
it's like if they fanned the hammer with a pistol, except they are using a bow.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then the only other thing I guess about Bard that has literally nothing to do with anything, but for people that are wondering, you need Bard for performance mode. That's it.
Sick. Yes, thrill your friends and annoy literally everyone else.
Hey, don't sleep on the songbirds, man.
I'm not sleeping on the songbirds, but for every one songbird, there are 300 mofuckers spamming out Wonderwall in Limpsulaminsa.
On
And I'm
request.
I'm
On
just
request.
not here for it.
Okay. But yeah.
Those
In
better to
short,
hide
yeah.
in your in the in rooms or do your crafting in the in rooms so you're away from all that.
Yeah, the simple solution is to just not go to Limsa, which is
That works
effectively
too.
what I do. Just avoid it like the plague. That's why I go to Gridania, but that's a story for another day.
Mm.
Um, anyways, anything else we're missing on Bard? Um, like,
I don't believe so.
yeah.
Like I said, I think I think its ADPS is getting a nice little bump in Endwalker, and I think its RDPS is getting an even better bump with Radiant Finale.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, like I think they did a lot to help mitigate the overwhelmingly dancer meta that we saw in Shadowbringers. Obviously, only time will tell.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, one thing they
Uh,
can do is add more multi-target fights because that's where Bard excels.
oh
Yeah.
God, yeah,
And
being able to
it'll be
double
even
dot.
easier with the longer dots. You won't have to upkeep them as much.
Yeah, I feel like you're gonna upkeep them exactly the same.
Well, no, you have an extra 15
Yeah,
seconds
but
where
I mean,
where
true.
you don't have to like be tabbing over and
Uh,
us- using
You
Iron Jaw.
might actually be upkeeping them roughly the same amount now that you're hitting Raging Strikes twice inside your full song rotation instead of just once.
I mean, well, the reason why I'm saying like more
That is
often,
true. That is true. You
I
might be.
mean, yeah, the reason I was saying just like keeping it about the same is just because I remember to refresh dots on more than one target when like I have to change songs, which is exactly what's gonna happen next time. So like it's gonna just
The
feel the
songs are
same.
this. The
Yeah,
songs are also the same
yeah,
length as the new dots. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
so like it's going to feel exactly the same, just 15 seconds later.
yeah. Well, I mean, like the ad phase in E7, where you're dotting 3 targets. That
for that brief moment, Bard was king.
yeah,
Which
that,
ad phase
that
in
was
E.
fun.
Oh yeah, E7. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, the 3 guys you're moving around in a circle
yeah.
on.
Get that weak ass bird shit out of here.
Mm,
The only thing I remember from that phase is just double stacking the stacks and then not dying and making it
yeah,
easier to heal. Like that was just the
yeah,
dumbest thing I'd ever fucking seen.
kind of surprising considering the normal mode has
Yeah.
magic Vuln on the stacks.
Yeah.
We can't get into E7, but I really do feel like there were like 6 drafts of E7, and then they accidentally uploaded draft 4.
I
Hmm.
think they said that they nerfed it uh, before it came out
They
officially.
did nerf it before it came out, but they have also said that they did not ever pick up on brain dead strat being a thing.
Wow.
Like that was something completely unexpected to them, and it made the fight easier than was intended,
Oh
even
yeah,
after the nerf.
yeah, yeah, for
Makes it
sure.
makes that phase a joke.
Yep.
Anyway,
Hmm.
shall we move on to something else?
Let's yeah. How about to keep how about to keep interest between the beginning and end? Let's talk a little bit about Dancer so that we can save Machinist and more expertise for that for the last little bit.
Machinist got the least amount of changes, but all right, let's talk about Dancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, explain Dancer to a fresh-faced Sprout.
Uh, do you have a significant other? Then play Dancer. The
Really, I
end.
thought if I had a significant other, the one who wore the pants was supposed to be a tank, and then the other one's supposed to be the healer.
Nah.
Nah,
Nah.
I got a lot of evidence to suggest that
That face went
happens.
single.
I'm
It's
pretty sure
okay.
they're the healer in our group.
No. So
That's slightly
really,
different.
so
I
so
was not throwing shade at them.
Of
so
course.
really, the thing about Dancer is that well, the in the wise words of Ike from Super Smash Brothers and Fire Emblem, and then Super Smash Brothers. My friends are my power. So you pick a friend, you give them your red sticker, and they just do more damage because of the every action you do. Well, two actions you do will buff their damage significantly. Um, well, not significantly, but like to the point where it is very noticeable.
What
Um,
what what Bard does for the entire party passively by singing their songs, Dancer does semi-passively for one party member.
hmm
And then to add insult to injury, they do it for the entire party every so often,
Every 2 minutes, yeah,
every 2 minutes.
it's great.
Um, but yes, no, we mentioned how dominant Dancer has been throughout Shadowbringers meta, and that is simply because you shove dance partner, their red sticker, up the ass of your highest personal DPS, and you just let them go to town.
Yeah, exactly.
Are
Or if you're like
are
me,
you a
you hope that
samurai?
someone else gets dance partner, and then you DPS race that person to prove a point. What point? I'm glad you asked.
Are you?
No,
Do you have an answer ready for it?
that was the answer. That was the answer.
Be continued.
As far as how Dancer mechanically functions, it is a semi-proc based job. There,
Combos.
it's very comparable to Red Mage, just with combos instead of alternating back and forth with mana types.
Yeah, you have a
Uh,
two-step combo that can also proc two other actions, which can it's a really weird kind of trickle down proc kind of a thing. You're gonna be doing your 1-2 hit combo the most often, and then after that you're gonna be doing your um, if you get a proc off of either your 1 or your 2, you get that I wouldn't call it 3-4, I call it like +1 +2.
AB.
Yeah,
Yeah.
AB, um, which have a 50% chance of proccing um, your fan dances, which have a 50% chance of proccing fan dance 3. Um, so there's a lot of procs just behind dancer, but there are several buttons you can push. Well, I mean, there is a button you can push to force those procs manually to essentially build up as many fans as possible. To use whenever your 2-minute buff goes out, which is where when all other raid buffs go up, just to do slightly more damage. Um, but yeah, what am I missing?
In terms of how Dancer works, did you mention
Technical
just
step. That's what
yeah?
I missed. Yeah. So there are two different dances that dancers do. Um, the first one is standard step that you do basically on cooldown. Well, you do both on cooldown, but this is the one you do the most often. It's a 2-step dance that once you finish, um, shoot, what did it do again? I think like one, it increases your damage,
It
but
increases your damage and the damage of your dance partner
yeah,
when you're doing a
um,
standard step.
yeah, it's an AOE as well. Um, and it does it like the actual execution of it does damage. So you want to be in range of the enemy, whether it be a group of enemies or the boss. Um,
The reason it does
yeah,
damage is because the way that you execute your dance steps is you're basically hitting your GCD
yeah.
buttons, which turn into the dance step buttons as long as that is active, and then you execute it.
The point design
So
better. Yeah,
yeah, so kind of like say, White Mage's Lilies, where you're spending these GCDs not doing damage, but then Misery helps you recoup some of that lost cost.
hmm
Uh, Dance steps work the same way. You're spending these GCDs doing nothing but doing an animation of a dance step, but at the end you get some damage out of it
yeah.
on top of the buffs.
So yeah, and so there's that dance, and then every 2 minutes you get another dance called technical step, um, which instead of buffing just one person, which is who your partner to, you buff the whole party. Um, and it's a 4-step dance that has a much higher potency that you want to line up with other raid buffs, basically, to just maximize your burst window as much as possible. Um, and yeah, I think basically that's pretty much the entire kit. Dancer was introduced in Shadowbringers, um, which is why there was so much hype around this particular job, and which is why Bard mains like myself formerly, um,
Felt slighted.
yeah, heavily because they took what we like to do and took the bow, slapped some chakrams into our hands, and told us to go. And some of us were not so happy with it.
Looking
um,
jealously over at the Esprit gauge.
yeah, yeah.
Which,
Oh, yeah,
like we mentioned during Bard, as you and your partner do certain actions, I think it's only during the technical step phase.
yeah.
You are charging up a gauge that can be cashed out at 50 gauge to do a GCD called Saber Dance, which is exactly what Ardent wants Apex Arrow to be, but it never will be.
Nope. Feels bad.
Oh well.
Mm. It's funny because you
Uh,
could fit up to 2 saber dances. You can stock up to 2 saber dances if you wanted, or more realistically, your Esprit gauge is built up off. Well, there's a 50% chance, I believe, after every action that people do, through either step. So during standard step, you or your partner could build the Esprit gauge, and then during technical step, everyone helps build. It's a lot like Brotherhood in that way with what how it works. Um, and because of that, um, you could end up with instances where everyone builds up so much Esprit at once that you end up hitting Saber Dance like 3 times in a row, and still have enough for one last one before the end of raid buffs. It just really is dependent on procs and um, how quickly everyone else is kind of helping you generate Esprit.
Uh,
Um,
on
yeah.
that note, Esprit, just to start getting into some of the Endwalker changes, Esprit is going to generate much faster in Endwalker because you will now be getting 10 every time you hit one of your procced GCDs.
They're also that's also another change is that the proc GCDs are going to transform the original GCDs instead of being their own separate button.
I believe that's the case. That's
Yeah.
also part of so they are also unifying the procs.
Hmm.
So basically, we talked about how Dancer has a 1 and a 2, and then an A and a B. They also have the exact same setup for their AoEs. They
Yeah.
have AoE 1, AoE 2, AoE A and B. Um, and all of those have the ability to proc their A and Bs. Now, if you hit single target 1 and get a proc for A, you can either spend that proc on single target A or AoE A, which makes it much easier for Bard to kind of just seamlessly swap between single target and AoE as necessary in like dungeons, without losing any DPS, without wasting procs. It also makes one part of their burst phase a lot more straightforward, because they have a button that basically just makes all of their proccable buttons light up at the same time. You are now no longer going to need to manually spend all of the single target light up buttons and then all of the AoE ones. They will now be unified.
Yep. Much
Uh,
comfier. Less button bloat though. Dancer never had much button bloat to begin with, so
it didn't. They are also making the quality of life change that you're, like I said, they're also unifying the buttons. When you hit standard or technical step, your AoE buttons will also turn into the dance steps,
yes.
which is uh,
It's how it works in
that's
PvP,
that.
actually.
Oh, is it?
Yep, it's how it works in
Oh, that's
PvP.
nice.
Um,
That'll be good
yeah,
for me. My particular dancer hotbar setup will definitely benefit from that.
yeah. Um, but now that we're kind of talking a little bit more about Shadowbringers changes, what else is kind of
And
happening
walker
to
changes.
Endwalker changes? It's yeah, my brain is just not wired correctly today. I'm sorry.
So, do both of you know like the sort of dancer opener or the sort of the dance of the rotation?
Yep.
Because I knew it at one point, but I'm very foggy on it at this
Fif-
point.
15 seconds before opener, no, 15 seconds before pull, you want to start your dance, because right at the pull, you want to execute your standard step, so that it'll be back up from cooldown in the middle of your technical step, because you're going to do like 1 or 2 GCDs. I forget how many specifically. And if Tiller's watching, I wish he would tell me. But um, yeah, it's like 1 or 2 GCDs after you execute your standard step. You execute technical step, um, and from there you want to be generating as much esprit, as many fans as possible, and then you want to also execute your second standard step during those raid buffs to get as much damage out as possible. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
You are then, since both of you are so well informed, one of you needs to explain uh, their technical step follow up button to me.
it it's the same potency as a standard step. It really makes no sense to me either, honestly. Um, but from what I am understanding, and I could be wrong because I don't do nearly as much research as I should be doing on any of these podcasts, um, is um, it's the same potency and it resets your standard step, but
Hey, let me
for
read
me
it
it
out
makes
to you.
little sense. Yeah.
So after you've executed technical step, which as Arden has just described, you
Hmm.
do in your opener after a standard step outside of combat, you can deliver an attack to all nearby enemies with a potency of 360. That is the same potency as a zero-step standard finish. But like I mentioned, the potency of standard finish, the potency of any of the dances, is increased to compensate for the fact that you're having to waste GCDs doing the dance step. So to me, it makes sense at least that you're not doing any dance steps, so you're getting the same potency as that. Uh, it gives standard finish and esprit to yourself and your party member, so it works exactly the same as standard finish in that case. Uh, and it triggers the cooldown of weapon skills, step actions, and like as near as I can tell, it looks like it just makes it so every 2 minutes you don't need to do a standard finish reset.
Well, standard step does just if standard step didn't do damage, it would. If standard step didn't do as much damage as it does, it would make it make more sense. But like, I mean, from what I'm understanding, you would still do standard step under raid buffs anyways.
But
Uh,
why though? So think about it, because I'm trying to think out the math in my head here.
yeah.
So when you hit standard step, you're spending what amounts to 2 GCDs, right?
Well, it's also because you want to make sure that it's still part like it's still rotating. You know, like how do I put it? Like I don't know. Well, I don't play dancer as much as Tiller does, but I guess he would have. I guess he would have had a better answer than I did. But
I get it. You wish Tiller was here instead of me. You don't have to just hint at it.
yeah. But let me see. Standard step is stronger than any combination of 2 to 3 GCDs, is what Nox is saying. Which, yeah, it does. Let me just even take a look at what my dancer does right now.
So, okay, if a
Yeah.
dancer hits standard finish with 0 steps, they're doing 360. 1 step, it's 540. 2 steps, it's 720.
For
Or that might just be the Endwalker potencies that I'm looking at. And then this new ability that we're talking about, Tilana, which is what becomes accessible immediately after finishing technical finish with no additional steps required, uh, gives standard finish to your partner, activates Esprit, and gives the max damage possible bonus, just flat with no steps.
hmm
And like, I guess what it comes down to is I'm not math savvy enough, especially with their sort of half GCD recast Mudra ass timings, to know if this is a DPS gain, a DPS neutral, or is it just a quality of life improvement.
I would need to know if it interacts with standard step at all, because again, like standard step is just too much damage to just let it stay like sit. You know, like you want to keep standard step rolling on your GCD, like
Mm-hmm.
rolling as a cooldown, right? Um, what do you call?
It triggers the cooldown of weapon skills, step actions, and finish actions.
Yeah,
So I will say that it looks like Tilana puts standard finish and standard step rather on cooldown after you use it.
it puts standard step on cooldown, or it just means you just can't use it at the same time.
Well, there'd be no reason to use it at the same time because you'd be refreshing standard step after like 3 seconds.
Tilana replaces another GCD, but like, does it put standard step on cooldown again? Like it's
I think so. I think based on how I'm reading this tooltip, I think it does.
it puts it
I
on a
don't.
30-second count cooldown again.
It would
It
put it
doesn't.
on its
It doesn't replace
whatever.
a dent. It doesn't replace a dance sequence, is what you're saying. Okay.
No, it's. I thought it was supposed to replace a dance sequence. You
Uh,
can tell you can hear and see and feel my confusion
yeah, I'm
clearly.
looking. No, I'm responding to what Soul's saying, or Nox is
Oh,
saying.
okay.
It doesn't replace a dance sequence. So then it's really just extra damage just sitting there if you don't use it in like in raid buffs.
Well, you'll always be using it in raid buffs. You can only use Tilana in raid buffs.
No, I'm talking about standard step.
You're talking about standard step
Yeah,
now. Okay.
because like what we're talking about is like Talana versus standard step, but I'm thinking like you always want to put standard step in during technical step because that's extra damage you're just missing. Right? That's extra potency that you're just not getting if you don't put that in um, with under technical step. Talana is just another standard step on top of that. It's just a combo off technical. So like if it doesn't put standard step back on cooldown while also refreshing standard step, then it would be a DPS loss to not also hit standard step under raid buffs. Like it's very weird. It's very
That is
awkward.
weird. I can confirm that you can use it while standard step is on cooldown because I've just looked at footage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it just comes down to they want dancers to be able to dance more often because they're dancers and that's what they like.
Yeah. It as Nox has also said, it makes everything drift, which is not
Cool.
what you want.
No, that's what you want.
It's really not.
Uh, well, then in that case, let's talk about the other fun button they got, which is put a bird on it.
They also got another button on top of that.
Uh, Another button on top of Fan Dance 4?
Um, it's the combo action to improvisation.
Oh, their utility button.
Yes.
Yes. So what is improvisation, by the way?
Improvisation is the worst button in the game. Not really. It's just a really feels bad kind of a button.
First button in the
Right
game
now.
is Apex Arrow.
Yeah. So the thing about improvisation is that um, you basically set a field around you. How it works right now is you set a field around you, and everyone standing inside it gets increased healing from any action, and also increases your esprit by 10 if all 7 other people stand inside that circle, which never happens. Um, so it's great for downtime if everyone knows what's going on. It's absolutely terrible for downtime when you're in DF because no one ever stands in that shit, and it just makes your esprit a weird multiple, and you just kind of hate everything because you either overcap and get everything into that nice clean like multiple of 10, or you just you know in order to maintain maximum uptime, you just pretend that number at the end doesn't exist. You don't
Um,
have 57 esprit.
and so, in order to fix that, they have decided to double down on the 10% increased healing from all healing actions element
Yeah.
of the ability, which I actually didn't know existed. I don't run with dancers very often. So now, after you have used improvisation, you have access to improvised finish,
Mm-hmm.
which creates a. Well, it depends on how long you've been dancing, but it creates a shield up to a certain percentage of maximum HP. The max is 10, and I believe that's all it does. Basically, as you're dancing, you are building up stacks of a buff called Rising Rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just hit the button immediately, which I imagine means that you could just flash it like a collective, it's a 5% maximum HP shield, and then each stack adds an additional 1% to it to a maximum of 4.
Yep.
That's not
Wh-
nothing.
That is not nothing, and that's on top of utility that Dancer already has in the form of Curing Waltz, which is a somewhat low potency, but still a decent potency heal.
It is a very noticeable heal if you're stacked on top of your dance partner because your dance partner
Right.
also gets Curing Waltz.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is either a 300 potency heal that pops out of you and your dance partner, or if you're all standing together, it is a 600 potency off global heal from a DPS every 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah.
Fucking my fairy wishes it could do that.
Yeah,
um,
they're
yeah.
both really powerful. I mean, the 5% shield on everyone for certain mechanics you're trying to completely shield through. Uh,
That's
it,
helpful. It just what I would need to know is how well does the game handle you flashing 2 off globals in a single weave window?
yeah,
Because you never want to hit improvisation while the boss is out and targetable. Let's say
yeah,
terminal relativity, which is what we keep going to whenever we want to talk about everyone helping to mitigate the damage.
Yeah.
You still want to make sure your dancer is hitting the boss all the way through that. They're not just going to
Yeah.
stand in improvisation.
I was mostly thinking about it for times like in E10S, where you're trying to shield cheese that one
Oh,
the rotating jumping dogs mechanic, where
Cup
you shield
dog.
through it completely, and
yeah,
then no one has to move, so you keep full
yeah.
uptime. Like I, I mean, you wouldn't need the 5% shield at, I mean, at current gear levels, you have enough output to cover it. But
It honestly,
or-
it might enable certain party comps to do it where they wouldn't be
yeah,
able to otherwise.
yeah,
Because there are definitely certain party comps that are more than capable of healing through every heal check in the game, but aren't necessarily capable of putting out a shield of that magnitude on every party member.
yeah. I mean, Astro Scholar was the way to go for something like that.
Oh
We
yeah.
we did
Throw
it
out,
with,
throw out neutral sect.
yeah, we when we were doing it, we did it with just a Scholar, so it was not as easily
But you
done.
had access to a warrior, if I recall correctly.
Paladin.
No, he was on.
Dark Knight,
Sai was on Dark Knight for that.
right?
Yeah, we did have Paladin. I think we tank
Mantra.
I think we tank LB'd.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, for that one we did Nature's Min,
Mantra.
spread at low. Yeah, we had Mantra, we had Troubadour. You pop all the defensives, and
But yeah, it is possible that if the dancer sacrificed, maybe one GCD to get a little bit of extra shielding, maybe you could have saved the tank LB, and that
yeah,
that is actually more raid damage as a direct result.
yeah. I mean, it's a very niche case, like,
Mm.
but it could potentially depend, like you said, depending on your group comp, it could come in handy
What?
for allowing your group to do something like that.
Watch
Yeah.
that be the one button that once again cements Dancer as the only Phys range in the meta. Like there's just some like tier one cheese strat that requires like a 7% level improvised finish or some shit.
yeah.
I mean, I think Dancer will still probably end up being meta just because of how well they scale on the individual person that they're buffing.
Yeah, and that's always the thing. Like you don't like to talk about it because it's a bit gauche, but
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
it's not usual that you will find a raid group, even the really good ones, where everyone is of an exactly equivalent skill level.
yeah,
You're probably going to have that one player who's a bit better, um, and it might just end up being better to buff the really good guy
yeah,
as opposed to passively a little bit buff everybody.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, but this is the meta really only affects the top end, like, the
Yeah.
Basically,
gold
just play what
and
you want.
pink parses. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
for the majority of groups, it's play what you're good at, play what you enjoy.
Yeah.
Yes. If you are good at machinist, you will always do better by your group to bring the machinist you know how to play than the dancer that you're kind of iffy on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Um, but I do like to mention the meta just because I find that things like meta, you tend to see it trickle down into the discourse.
yeah. Oh
Even
yeah.
people who
No,
don't know what
of
they're talking
course,
about will
Mhm.
of
swear up and
course.
down.
Yeah,
They don't even have dancer unlocked, and they'll swear up
yeah.
and down that dancer is the only Phys range you should bring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also it's interesting to follow, even if you're not like to be aware of, even if you're not adhering to it, uh, or just seeing how each of the jobs compare for a raid tier on FF logs. You see some interesting things that you might not have necessarily expected. Like one thing that just kind of random aside, but I guess on that note, I still remember how for Shiva in E8S, Red Mage was all the way up at number 4 on RDPS, and they're nowhere close to that in any of the other uh, fights. But that fight specifically, for some reason, they were really good. So just kind of seeing those kind of
Hmm.
differences across the fights, just kind of
Yeah.
seeing the differences between the jobs, seeing like, oh well, one is really good on this fight, and kind of trying to reason out, well, why is that? I'm not really sure in that specific case, but it struck me as something really interesting.
Yeah.
Something to be mindful of. It doesn't mean I'm gonna. Well, next time I go in to play to run Shiva, I'm gonna run Red Mage. But just kind of neat to see that that's the case.
Yeah.
It's always neat to see just the entire hive mind of 14 throw itself at these fights and what they come up with.
Yeah.
Um, should we mention the other two buttons that that Dancer's getting before we move on to Machinist?
The bird one that I ignored.
So there's the bird one that you basically the last substantial change that Dancer is getting is outside of their dances, which are obviously core to their kit and core to how they support the DPS of everybody. They have two other buff buttons. One of them is Flourish, which is the button I mentioned that just makes all of their proc buttons light up. There is now an extra button that you get to hit only after you've hit Flourish, which is Fan Dance 4, which is a conal AoE for some strange reason. But it has a really cool animation to it. A little bit of extra damage there. And their other buff, and arguably the reason why Dance Partner was such an overpowered ability in Shadowbringers, is Devilment, which is a 120-second buff, in Endwalker at least, that buffs the crit and direct hit rate by 20% for 20 seconds for you and for your dance partner. Fitting a personal buff that substantial into raid buffs is god tier. And now they get a fucking IR fell cleave inside of that as well. As soon as they hit Devilment, they gain access to Starfall Dance, a 600 potency line AoE that is a guaranteed crit direct hit.
Wow.
Lots of fancy buttons on their part.
Yeah. Almost makes me want
Blast
to play
Arrow
Dancer.
doesn't auto crit.
Well, no, but Blast Arrow is under the effects of all those songs that don't affect you.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, all right. So, end of the day, do we actually think that Bard got buffed up to parody? Answer.
I just I don't know.
Sag Bard
It's
thoughts.
it's just feels bad.
Should we talk about the job that feels good then?
Does it feel good?
I don't know. You play Machinist. Nekko plays Machinist.
Oh, are we done with Dancer?
I don't have anything else to say on Dancer.
I mean, you said the job that feels good, so I assumed you still meant Dancer. I mean,
okay.
I wouldn't know. I don't play it, but I imagine it's fun to play.
I know a lot of people who have a lot of fun with it, and I'm not gonna knock any of them for enjoying it because we talked about what is it that would make you like Bard, dots, juggling, stuff like that. If your favorite thing is hitting the buttons when they light up, I cannot think of a job better suited for you than Dancer. I love playing Red Mage, and there is definitely an element of the buttons lit up on Red Mage, but it's nowhere near the amount that Dancer does it. Plus, it is definitely the RDPS job that lets you feel the most valuable and important, because it is very clear to see how much you are improving the DPS of whomever you've partnered.
I mean, it's the reason we have our DPS in the first place.
Unless,
that is true.
Yeah. Until you realize that you're doing more damage to the person you're partnered to.
Well,
that's just, you know what? I'm gonna blame you on that, not you personally, but if you've dance partnered someone that is that much of a stinker, maybe you should have checked their gear before you zoned in.
I mean, what if everyone else is also not good, and you pick the least not
good?
No,
then you dance partner the healer to make a statement.
What statement?
Fuck all y'all. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in a normal group, you're we're talking Savage and higher. Presumably, your dance partner is gonna be doing acceptable damage that you would expect for a Savage or higher player. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, PF is its own beast at times, but. I don't know. If assuming everyone's playing correctly, then
dance partner should be nothing but a positive, and the dancer should not be higher than their dance partner.
Yeah.
because of that ranged tax we mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything else to mention on Dancer, especially nothing that's new in Endwalker.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to add anything since I'm kind of lost as Dancer goes.
Shall
Fair.
we move to Machinist then?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, let us move on to Machinist. All right, I just came over from World of Warcraft. I'm looking for a job that has a gun. Tell me what Machinist does.
Gone.
Gun? The gun is good.
So
Machinist is evil.
machinist is for if you hate procs and you hate dots, um,
But you really don't
and you
want to stay
really
on this.
and
Oh,
you live on, well, it's a West Coast job, I would say, or
there's,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
low
I feel
paying
like
job.
half the jobs in this game are West Coast
Yeah,
jobs.
it's a low paying job.
Machinist especially.
Yeah. Basically, what makes machinist so good, well, so satisfying to play, um, is you take the concept of buffing other people and then you just shove it up their ass,
Throw it
because
in.
just throw it in their face, because machinist doesn't do anything um, remotely close to buffing other people except for tactician, which is a party
Everyone can
wide.
do.
Yeah, which is what every ranged DPS has.
It goes by a different name, but they all have the same ability, the same mitigation, and the same cooldown now, or always
Exactly.
have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's how do I put it? It's a combo based class. In that you have a 1, 2, 3 that you push in order. You can push it in whatever order you want, but there is one order that gets the most out of the damage. It's pretty much, I would say it's kind of more filler than anything. Um,
Yeah.
because what you want to do is you're building up a gauge that allows you to enter hypercharge, and what that does is you become a machine gun. It turns your GCD into a 1.5 second GCD every time you push that button. And then in between, you're able to weave in a ricochet or a Gauss round, I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what and basically it's impossible to be able to do that, to be able to weave anything into that, unless you're living somewhere with low ping, aka the West Coast.
Well, it's very easy to lose heat blast casts with the
Yeah.
short GCD if your ping is bad.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you're gonna lose damage
Mhm.
if you're not getting all of the what is it, 5 heat
Yeah.
blasts in,
Yes.
Yeah.
within the
This so thi-
hypercharge.
this is not the same as like for example when I'm playing warrior and I'm looking to get a certain number of fell cleaves inside my inner release window, and I know how many I'm supposed to get based on my skill speed, but it means popping inner release in the second half of the weave.
Yeah,
It's literally just your ping will lose you casts.
yeah. Well, I mean that's what
Okay.
you're supposed to do with hypercharge is put it at the as the second weave,
Oh,
just
okay.
to make sure you're getting your heat blasts in. Although didn't they change inner release to be charge based?
Oh, possibly the tank podcast
Because
isn't for a little bit, so I
so
don't know yet.
I believe so. Like that, I was surprised because I think that was one of the things people were expecting, given how well documented it's been, how ping reliant machinist was and still is, and
Yeah.
they didn't end up changing hypercharge, so it's still make sure you weave it late so you guarantee you get your 5 heat blasts in under it.
Right? Or live in Cali.
Yeah, or feel bad when you're trying to hit heat blast and you can't anymore, and then you
Yeah.
lose
Or weep.
at least a GCD and a half or whatever
Hmm.
if you're not paying attention and spamming
Yeah.
the button that's not lit up anymore,
Mhm.
which I would never do, obviously.
Right. So it's a high personal DPS job. It's a combo job. It's a fast
Oh,
job.
it's supposed to be a high personal
Okay. Yeah.
DPS job.
It is intended to be the samurai of the Phys Ranged.
It's
It's
Yeah,
the
not.
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not even close.
Uh, we mentioned range tax at the beginning, and I just brought it up again a couple of minutes ago. I feel like Machinist probably suffers the most from it because they
Yes.
have no redeeming feature other than what they can personally output.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to see it do. I would like to see have it. I would like to have it have like comparable numbers to like Ninja Dragoon, basically. And
I think
if
that's
we're
where it
looking,
should be,
yeah,
frankly.
yeah, because again, there's no reason to bring a machinist unless the person's just really fucking good at machinist only. Um, in the highest kind of in the highest level of content,
Right.
base, you know,
When
like
every point of damage counts,
yeah,
there's not a hell of a lot of reason to bring Machinist.
Yeah.
yeah,
The personal DPS needs to be higher for
yeah.
sure.
Um, but knowing that, I guess we'll just go into
Into the
uh
changes?
into the changes. Yeah, there's nothing really too much else to say. Like machinist is a very simple kit. It doesn't
We
have
talked
that
about
many
the two
buttons.
gauges?
We talked about heat blast. I guess we could talk about your combo enders essentially uh, give you 10 of another gauge. I forget what the name of that other gauge is, but
Battery
battery. There you
gauge.
go. Yeah. And then once you get it up to 50, you're able to consume all of that gauge um, to summon the automaton queen.
You
And
don't have
which
to wait till on 100?
No,
no.
you should, or you should. I forget. Well, it scales linearly,
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
but I think you're supposed to wait.
wait till buffs basically to bring it out. If you're delaying it for buffs so it does more damage, you can do that. But otherwise, just use it right at 50.
I believe the goal is to use it every minute.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just wanted to bring it up to illustrate comparing essentially Batter Gauge, Apex Arrow, and Saber Dance.
We've already established that Apex Arrow is the worst button in the game. Like we don't need to
I don't agree
continue.
with that. I don't agree with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
The worst button in the game is Summoner's Physic.
That's probably true, and that's still
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah. But yeah.
Anywho, yeah, and then you can summon the big fancy queen, and she does the big fancy moves,
Yeah.
Yeah,
getting slightly fancier in Endwalker. So
yeah.
we can talk about those changes. They are getting an upgrade to their AoE button, just like Bard did.
It
Theirs
becomes
also looks coolish as hell.
yeah,
This one's actually good though, because it gives more heat. It doubles the heat
Yes.
gain.
yes. It also sounds like a shotgun, and shotguns are cool.
Yes.
Never forget that shotguns are cool.
Never forgetty.
Level 84, they get a second charge of their only, I guess we should call it their only personal buff, because Wildfire doesn't count. Wildfire is essentially a dot.
It's a
Uh,
debuff.
yeah. Reassemble, which makes it so that the next GCD you output is a forced crit direct hit. It has traditionally been paired with, I believe, drill and or air anchor.
It,
I'm not
it it's always going to be drill. I mean, you can use it on air anchor if you've drifted and messed up, but
right.
it lines up with drill.
But now you have two charges of it, so presumably you'll line it up with drill and air anchor.
I forget what's the potency on the new ability. Is
Their new ability, Chainsaw,
yeah.
back at it again from Final Fantasy VI. Chainsaw is down here.
It's 550, so it's the same as drill and anchor also.
It's a bit late.
So I guess in that case it's situational.
Bunch of these, but it would be nice to
Well,
have if you have these skills up on screen as you talked about them, at least on occasion. Okay.
I did not hear that.
Oh, I was looking at what Amita was saying.
Okay.
It's a bit late since you've already done a bunch of these, but it would be nice if you had these skills up on screen as you talk about them, at least on occasion.
Oh yeah, that is a good idea.
That's
It's
true.
a shame we're not looking at my screen then. I'm the one that has always had the pictures up.
I mean,
Um,
do you want to stream it?
Nope,
like
I'm
like
good.
like on Discord so I can just
I can shoot you a link to the picture I'm looking at,
Yeah.
and then your ass can do it, Mr. Streamer. But yeah, so
Okay.
they're getting their capstone button is their big fancy chainsaw. It is the same potency as air anchor and drill. So does it just come down to which animation you like better? Slash, if you are in a multi-target situation, you would opt for chainsaw.
Uh, I mean, you know, if you look at it, if you squint, chainsaw is basically Apex Arrow.
It's not.
It's a line AoE and a minute cooldown. You're using Apex about every minute.
You're not. It's
It,
that about that really. The devil's in the details, and
it
that is
gives
what will damn you.
it gives battery and it looks cooler, but other than that,
Apex Arrow does not force procs. God, imagine if it did. Just make that messy button even messier. Let's see. We already mentioned that everybody has had their utility button reduced in cooldown to 90 seconds, so
yeah,
you'll be able to hit tacticians slightly more often.
yeah. I mean, chainsaw's good though. It's gonna. I mean, it's another AoE option.
It's fantastic for dungeons.
And yeah, and it streamlines your battery gain even more,
Hmm.
so you're able to pump out higher battery gauge queens
Or yeah, or more frequent queens.
regularly. Yeah,
Um, and the queen now has a brand new finisher move. She has
yeah, she
Crowned
does.
Collider, which is an increase of about 100 potency. And then I'm assuming it has the same linear scaling as Pile Bunker did.
Uh, yeah, I would think so.
It's just replacing Pile Bunker, so.
Well, no, I don't think it replaces. I think it does
Oh,
both.
does it not?
Yeah, I think it. They do the pile bunker and then they like jump back and do the collider. I
Oh,
think that's what that was.
is that how it works? Okay, that's neat. Yes, you are correct. After executing Pile Bunker, the Automaton Queen will also execute Crowned Collider. Okay, so Queen is just a very large DPS payoff.
Yeah.
Very nice. Other than that, I think Machinist is just getting a minor tweak to all of its DPS button potencies to, again, hopefully execute on that dream of it being a high personal DPSing job that feels like a high personal DPSing job.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't really change at all from Shadowbringers. Although, I mean, it was just reworked for Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
changed
I mean,
massively coming
it
from
definitely.
from
yeah.
Yeah.
Res.
Yeah. Like, I think because like I was a little hesitant to like hop into Machinist as a former Bard main back in the day.
Yeah.
But like, and the reason why is because the combo system was really fucking weird. Um,
The
basically,
previous
what
one,
it
yeah.
did was like you would get heated split shot, heated slug shot, and heated clean shot. What would happen was like it worked like Dancer, where split shot had a chance of proccing slug shot, which had a chance of proccing clean shot, right? And so you'd be spamming split shot the most often to get this proc, and then you would use this proc to try and get clean shot. But instead of hitting clean shot on like as soon as it came up, you would basically kind of rotate things out. So like you would try to get another slug shot. You try to get another slug shot ready, and then hit clean shot. Then use slug shot again to try and get another clean shot. And it was just like it was really fucking weird. Heat works very differently.
Yeah.
Everything was just it was just a really complicated high skill floor kind of a job with not a high skill ceiling basically.
Yeah. I mean, also the payoff for being good at it. Like, the payoff was there, actually, I think, with Stormblood.
Yeah.
It's just not many people could really get to that ceiling because I mean it still had the ammo back then to make your combo procs 100%.
Yeah.
They were only 50% to
Hard to learn,
progress the
hard to
combo.
master them.
Uh, yeah,
It was
I think that's fair. I mean, it was definitely harder than it is now. It's
yeah.
they definitely streamlined it a lot. It's very straightforward to play now.
Would you say that's to its benefit or detriment as a job, not necessarily as a popular job?
I mean, I think it's okay that jobs like that exist in a game. They don't all need to be like
Big brain.
they don't all need to be summoner at the peak of its difficulty. Of course, summoner is getting streamlined a lot too. It's going to
Yeah.
be a lot easier than to play than it has been.
I think at the end of the day, it's really just like, does a job play kind of cater? Does a gameplay kind of cater towards the job identity, and what it is that you like want out of the job? And for machinist, I think back in
Definitely shoot a
Stormblood,
gun.
it was. I don't know. I think between Stormblood and Shadowbringers, like it definitely got more kind of clear in its identity.
Yeah. Well,
Which should be more satisfying.
it's the kind of thing as far as identity goes, because you talk about bard being like an archer versus a bard that
Mhm.
supports people. They sing and play music and all that, but also they shoot their arrows. For a while, they were just shooting arrows when they didn't have the party buffs. Now they
Yeah.
have the party buffs. For machinist and stormblood, it was very much they're the gun class and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas now they're like they have gadgets and stuff that
One might say
augment their
machines.
kit. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So as far as the like the job identity goes, I think it fits a lot better, and it's a lot easier to play. Uh, I don't think the damage ceiling is nearly what it was in Stormblood.
Yeah.
Now, just because no one could really play it to that ceiling doesn't mean that the ceiling wasn't up there. Like if you played it well, you could do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Whereas now in Shadowbringers,
It's not that hard to play well, but like it's also not
yeah,
nearly as strong as it should be
yeah,
to make up for its lack of utility.
yeah. I think it could use a numbers bump.
Yeah. Like I think that range tax should exist, but I definitely think that range tax is that there's too much of a tax on machinist right now.
Yeah, I mean I understand why they do it because I mean you have free movement, you don't have cast times.
Yeah.
But I mean, but also that's kind of that's also kind of balanced by the range players doing a bunch of mechanics because they can
Hmm.
move and don't have cast times.
They like thrive the most on movement heavy mechanics because
Yeah,
they don't have downtime unless
yeah.
the
I mean,
boss
I
literally goes
guess
away.
that is the hidden utility of the ranged members is they can interact with even the most complicated movement based mechanics.
yeah. I mean, I think that's for me. That's one of the big appeals of
Yeah.
playing them is you have mechanics where you need to move around a whole
Black
bunch.
smokers.
Well, yeah. That I mean, that was the big one early on in E3S. Is
Eruptions.
yeah. Well, I mean, you did that one in Uwu.
That's I mean I don't have a ton of bard experience. There's no fucking bard special mechanics in E12S.
Yeah.
Except for the S&M.
Well,
E.
and
Oh wait, no,
No?
8, sorry.
in T
12, yeah.
or an 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, just being able to help your raid out, because I mean, that's part of the support mindset too. Is like, you don't want your black mage to have to move. You don't want your healers to have to move. You want them to be able to keep casting. You don't want to have your melee have to peel off
Disengage,
the
yeah.
boss if they don't have to. I mean, a balanced group, the melee aren't anyway. So it's mostly the casters and healers that you're helping out, but that's good. You know, you that's pretty much what your role is really good at. That's the main
If
thing your role is really good at.
if that's the case, then is there a ton of point or a ton of call to have a high personal DPS version of that role?
Uh, I mean, in Machinist's current version, that's just how they are right now, and we've seen the changes for Endwalker, so that's how they
How
still
they're
are.
staying,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Like you'd have to completely rework their identity again, which I don't
yeah,
think it needs, especially considering Summoner and Monk just
Yeah.
got that.
yeah,
So in this case, kind of like Bard, you double down on what you've made and make it work with what you've made.
yeah. I mean, because it'd be tough if they were to give them a bunch of utility, because like then there'd maybe be too much overlap between them and Bard and Dancer. I mean, kind of changing roles for a second. I was actually impressed that they made Sage as unique from the other healers as they did, because it's kind of tough to come up with multiple different flavors of the same archetype.
To
Yeah,
reinvent the wheel.
yeah, and have them play differently from each other, but also be fun.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be tough to do something like that for Machinist.
Because you couldn't really give them DPS utility. I don't know. Maybe
I mean
take
they did
defensive
have
utility away?
they did have DPS utility in Stormblood. That's one thing they did have.
Hmm.
Was that it was old hypercharge?
It was
Wasn't it? It was called hypercharge then, right? It
it
was
was the one where you threw the wrench. I remember,
yeah,
I was talking
yeah.
to Nox about that before.
It was tactician.
No, it was, I'm pretty sure because it put the it was like the weaker trick attack that it put on the
If
boss.
you're still there, Nox, let me know.
I mean they had dismantle too,
Dismantle, yeah.
which
Disable.
now
Disable.
they have tactician, which is the same thing because
Yeah.
that's everyone in the role has that. Um, I mean they could add a thing or two, but you got to be
Okay.
careful
Disable is
because
Astro. Okay.
yeah, no, they had dismantle, which was the damage reduction on the target. It was a debuff, and then I think it was old hypercharge.
Yes, I did just look it up. Hypercharge was the trick attack analog.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was a debuff on the boss. Um, yeah, like they probably, like I said, they probably could add some more damage utility, but they just got to be careful not to overdo it because then you don't want to invalidate the
You don't want to invalidate Bard.
supports. Yeah,
You could make Machinist get a trick attack that overwrites the vuln up from Ninja, so that you don't have to bring a Ninja every time.
well, I mean, I think they've done a good job in not.
Floormans have become a bitch.
Yeah, they've done a good job with not having to like require jobs anymore
Yeah.
by
Like the
taking.
only thing I could think of would
Yeah,
be sort of going for a kind of like how during technical step your party will generate some amount of esprit for you. Maybe make it so that the party can contribute in a very small way to how much wildfire blows up for. But
I
that's
mean,
about all I could think of.
they
And then
could just
probably reverting.
they could probably just let wildfire crit and direct hit. That would, although I mean, although that gets to crit RNG, which is another issue that's not range specific
Hmm.
that I would complain about. But eh.
Hmm.
I mean that would be that's probably one area that they could just buff the job. It would help a little bit.
Yeah. I guess like an argument for not buffing is like if you really wanted to get into Savage as a DPS, but like you weren't comfortable with most things just yet, like just like a beginner, just like this, you're just starting Savage. You want to figure out like how to do everything. Um, Machinist is probably like the easiest job to get into Savage with, just because again, like you don't have buffs to worry about. You don't have to worry about positionals. You don't have to worry about cast times. It's easy to
Yeah,
get around.
Your
Um,
gauges have a bit of flex to them.
hmm Yeah, and so it's like it makes it so that it becomes very beginner friendly. It makes Savage feel more approachable just because this job it has a combo. There's no RNG to it. You have forced crits, and you don't have to worry about like buff like people relying on your buffs to do extra things or like to be able
yeah.
to
Well,
get the maximized like damage windows and stuff.
yeah, and but also on the other end, if you do a lot of PF, I mean, it's a good job. If you're like if you only play the physical range,
Yeah,
it's the best of the three. If you don't know what to expect from your PF group,
yeah,
'cause I mean, Machina still does like decent damage. It should probably do a little more,
yeah. I think
but
so. Maybe if Heat Blast crits or direct hits, it adds a bit more potency to Wildfire. That's a good idea. Yeah.
That's
I agree.
interesting.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, also they could just, you know, turn the knobs on just the combo abilities, just buff them 10 potency here and there, see what sticks. Like
They
the,
are doing that in Endwalker. It's just a question of whether it's going to be enough.
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, stuff like that is easy to change.
Mm. And honestly, might change more between what we've seen and the final version that we get.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the potencies we have in front of us aren't final.
Yeah.
Although I do want to complain about that one trait that Machinist is getting. What level is it? The level 84 one.
Oh,
That,
that's the one I was just talking about, the one that tweaks the GCDs.
yeah,
Is that? Give me a second.
yeah,
Marksman. It's not on the the picture I sent you. It's
yeah,
on the other one. Hang on, I'll send you the other one.
yeah. No, and the issue with it is because it buffs the base potency of the combo actions, but you're never using the base potency of the second and third parts of the combo because you're using the combo potencies. So it's literally you, only 1/3 of the trait is useful.
I want to believe that that's an oversight
I
in
hope
the
so.
tooltip.
I hope so, because
Um,
that's
I
pretty bad.
I have never seen them buff an action's potency only when it is used improperly.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it would have to add a bunch of words to the tooltip. I don't know. Maybe they hit their character limit.
Maybe
I
that's
mean,
it, or
have you
it might
seen
just be
Astrologian? Like, have you seen Astrologian's tooltips?
That's fair.
fucking Astrodyne has entered the chat. Um, yeah, I want to believe that like they are internally they're thinking of the combo potency as just being a flat bonus, so it's added on top of the base potency no matter what.
I would hope so. Yeah, they'd have to change the wording. Like increases the potency of your X, Y, and Z's combo actions by 10 or 20 or whatever. They word it like that.
I think it's 10 across the board,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
maybe 20 in the first.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I hope that's an oversight because that'd be really strange.
You worthless.
Yeah,
You will now do more damage on Red Mage if you perform the combo backwards.
yeah, yeah. Like
Don't do that,
you're
but it
playing
will do
wrong.
more damage.
Yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. I hope that's an oversight.
But I mean, overall, I think that the paladin has similar trait in Endwalker, and it's worded with the same. It's worded the same as the machinist one. We'll
Oh,
get to that when we'll get
I
to the tank talk. But
I have
yeah,
to think it's an oversight then.
yeah.
I
That's
just don't think they want you to do the combo backwards.
yeah. No, that can't be.
Um,
I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt.
It's just
More
odd
testing
seeing
is
how the
required.
tooltip is worded. Oh my god. New fight idea. All right, let's hear it, Amide.
New fight idea, says he? Interesting. We probably should chat about if there are any fight designed wishes that our Phys Ranged players have
Boss
for
requires you to do
Endwalker.
your combo backwards.
More multi-target fights for Bard.
Only for Bard, a
Well,
second boss spawns whenever
I
your
mean,
party
yeah,
enters the
yeah.
Bard.
Well, I mean, it's especially good for Bard. I mean, it doesn't really.
I would say that it is only bad for Machinist.
Yeah, it doesn't really do anything for Machinist.
I think it probably fucks Machinist over with
And
the inability to spread wildfire, but
it'd
Yeah,
be
I mean,
interesting to
no,
have.
go ahead.
It'd be interesting to have a fight where like you have like a second boss that like can't be targeted by a physical like melees because it's too far away. Like let's say like you're fighting on a platform and there's an
Oh,
enemy like in the distance that like only ranged DPS have an access to, but it's immune to magical damage.
hmm.
That'd be interesting.
it would be interesting in a all of a sudden daddy's picking favorites kind of a way.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like they can't
Bring
do
Phys Ranged or
something like
white
that,
assholes.
unfortunately. I mean, some groups. I don't know the odd curse group that has 3 melee
I mean,
because that's what
yeah.
people play in that group. They'd kind
For
of
a
be
short
screwed.
time, our group had double melee, double magic. We did not have a Phys Ranged until
Well,
early Shiva Prog.
yeah. I mean, that's like. I mean, you're not getting the 1%,
Yeah.
but that's at least playable. But
And no, we could
It'd
still
be
clear.
it'd still
having
be an
the
interesting idea.
having well, you just run out of like spots around the boss if you have too many melee in addition to the 2 tanks.
Mhm.
But I mean, if you only had
And no
like
one wants to do mechanics.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, a fight like that where you like needed range damage to be able to kill a side boss, and you only had 1 range in the healers, it
I mean, I
I
will
mean,
say that
if it
advantage.
popped up like if it was treated a lot like that's it called Shinryu's heart or whatever, you know,
No,
like an ad that pops up, not like a separate boss or something.
yeah,
It could be possible. Like I mean, obviously you're bringing a bard machinist dancer in the first place for party buffs, right? So like, if you're
why
bringing
not
just
make
one,
them feel really special? I mean, they already
you
get
know,
that a little bit in any fight where it's more advantageous to use a ranged physical LB to resolve a mechanic like Titan's jails.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's
I
definitely
mean, it's
there's
a
still
thought. It's not
yeah.
necessarily like
Well, yeah. I mean, we're not
you know,
fight designers, so we can I don't know.
yeah.
We can kind of brainstorm stuff, but
I mean, it is tricky when trying to design a fight to specifically make the physical ranged feel special because
yeah,
unlike melee where it's like give us more complicated disengages or give us a disengage where we also have to do something outside of the boss to keep us active. Like
yeah,
physical range, their whole purpose is that they can go anywhere and not lose uptime. So
yeah.
what
If
can the
there's
boss make you do?
yeah, it's pretty much mechanics like Black Smokers on Leviathan, like was mentioned. Just anything where you have something where you need people to move around a bunch and they dictate how the mechanic goes off. That's right up
Um,
the physical range's alley.
the only thing I could think of would be like a hot potato style mechanic. Um, not quite like a chain lightning or like an Allegan rot,
Yeah,
but something where like it is the job of the physical range to pick up something, put it on someone else, wait for it to do its thing, pick it up again, bring it to the
yeah,
next target, and just kind of escort this sub mechanic around the party because
yeah,
nobody else would be able to do that anywhere near as well as if is ranged.
yeah. I mean, on a mechanic like Chain Lightning, even if it wasn't a huge thing, they're good for kind of helping out your
Hmm.
casters and healers a little bit because they can like when you're spaced out evenly between people, but they can kind of shift left and right
I
to
mean,
move in.
if you were doing the triangle strat for chain lightning, Phys Ranged was always one of the pivots, and that
Yeah,
was their mechanic. Granted, you were only escorting it around two
yeah.
people,
But I mean,
but
Yeah.
even on circle, like you just shifting a little bit, and you're saving your healers, uh, or your black mage potential movement. Like you just cut down on their movement.
that's true. It's a safety net for stuff like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think you could definitely do something with like a transferable prey mechanic.
This is a
Like
plus
I know there
value.
was something like that in E1 Savage, but
yeah. But you're all grouped up at that point, so
yeah,
it
it
wasn't.
doesn't quite have the appeal that I'm talking about.
Yeah, you don't have to book it across the arena,
Yeah.
like the kind of mechanic you'd be talking about, where there's a lot more movement involved.
I agree. I mean, that eight having just a specifically eight person group does kind of restrict mechanics quite a bit. So, um,
Yeah,
not to the point where like we're kind of running into the same ideas every fight, but definitely makes it harder to make things that are new or unique.
yeah. I mean, I think the dispel on Bard is unique enough, and you see the benefit of that in T. Like it saves a GCD for a healer, which I mean, it's something.
Hmm.
It's not nothing. It obviously it's not a massive thing. I mean, Bard's good at that fight anyway because of the multi-target parts of it.
It's fantastic in Uwu, he lied.
I'll take your word on that one.
Awful. I hate it. If I knew how to play any other Phys Ranged, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, Dancer's
I know
not
you've
that
offered
hard.
to teach me Machinist, but
Dancer's not that hard.
it is apparently it's fun and meta and cool,
Yeah,
and you put birds on things.
you
I
could
wouldn't want to play Machinist at 70.
you get to pick your favorite black mage, and it didn't have to be the same one every day. It would fuck with everybody.
I would just dance partner the monk to save myself a headache. Plus, don't
So-
you have to care about action speed? Fuck it, that's another discussion entirely.
Is it
I think so.
for dance partner?
You do have to care about like GCD and action speed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In that case, I think you are better off with a monk than a black mage.
I thought it was normalized.
Was it normalized?
I thought it was. I'm not the person to ask. I probably shouldn't.
I'm pretty sure
That
Tiller said
matters.
sometime. I'm pretty sure Tiller said at one point that it was dependent, faster jobs got SP quicker. Because
I guess it comes down
volume.
to just how much is
Yeah.
higher Esprit chance worth versus how much your dance partner is improving a high personal DPS job.
Is it like significant, the difference between jobs? In terms of gain?
Monk definitely goes faster than black mage.
Well, yeah, no, I get that. But
I know for a fact at the start of the X pack it was based on GCD. Let me just check.
that seems like something they would streamline at some point if they haven't.
Is there a way?
I mean, I guess not that there's necessarily anything wrong from certain jobs being strictly better to partner.
No, I mean, I don't mind little optimizations like that. Things that
Yeah.
are in no way necessary in
Yeah.
95% of content, but in that other 5% can really make you feel like you are contributing to faster clears even before you get in there.
Yeah, although I mean, based on the number of parses that show up for Monk, I don't imagine that put them over the
Nothing.
edge.
Data,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I mean, if there was like consensus that they gave more, you'd probably see more of them in.
I would imagine that it is a narrow enough margin that, like, all right,
Yeah.
Monk goes this little bit faster, but my samurai player is this much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am going to contribute more raid DPS simply by partnering the samurai. Like, I might lose a saber dance, but so much more will be added to the raid.
Yeah, because the samurai's pumping.
The samurai's pumping out the damage, and like I said, maybe in this case, the samurai has a much better chance of staying aligned with raid buffs because the monk is newer. But
Yeah.
micro optimizations, not even job based, people based.
Yep. In any case. Let's see.
I think
Oh,
I
have a good
said
night,
my
Knox.
on Phys Ranged.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else to cover before we close things out. I think they're going to be in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
next expansion.
I mean, they were
I think
never
it's
in
gonna
a
be
terrible
lot- I think
spot
it's
to
gonna be
begin
more of the
with.
same.
Yeah, I don't think they were ever in a terrible spot to begin with. Obviously, like, Bard was in a bad spot, and Machinist is currently still in a bad spot. But
Yeah.
it's like, it's not so much that it's unplayable, or like
Yeah.
you're like, if you're getting kicked for playing Machinist, you don't want to be in those parties in the first place.
Yeah. No, they're
But,
they're
Doing you a
none-
favor.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of them are so bad that you should be getting kicked for playing them. I mean, they're
Esprit is
not
based on GCD.
not
Okay.
necessarily optimal.
That's what
I mean,
I thought.
dancer is meta, but like they're all fine. I mean, I think the Bard changes are the most interesting.
Sam over
going
Black
into
Nature partner.
Endwalker.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Machinist is pretty straightforward. It's more of the same.
Yeah.
But machinist is a lot of it just feels like a flat upgrade, kind of like that. That to me is we are taking a DPS that we have already reworked, and we are elevating that from 80 to 90. Kind of like it almost feels like white mage in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Bard feels like we kind of reworked it in Shadowbringers a little bit, but a second coat of polish makes the whole thing shine a lot better.
yeah. Well, I mean, it lines up a lot better with everyone else, so that alone, it'll feel different.
I think they probably get the award for most improved as far as jobs being standardized to the 1 and 2 minute burst windows.
Which one, Machinist or Bard?
No,
Bard.
Bard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Just the number of things that are now getting tweaked to just fit. You're gonna have
yeah,
raging strikes up for every single trick attack. That alone is huge.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, Raging Strikes lines up. I mean, Barrage doesn't.
Right, the
but
trade-off there was Barrage is
but
2 minutes now.
that's fine. I mean, yeah, Battle Voice is 2 minutes now. I mean, like we said, we'll see how Radiant Finale is going to fit in most optimally.
And
Yeah.
I'll bet you anything, it's gonna be kill times, fight design, and party comp.
Yeah,
Because honestly, well, you can't hit it every minute because the cooldown's not quick enough.
yeah,
But so you can't just say, well, underpowered, but line it up with every trick attack. It simply can't function that way.
yeah,
I do think that the change to making the second hit of Apex Arrow, um, like a flat damage thing, makes Apex Arrow a much better button to use. I still hate Apex Arrow, but
But
I think
now
it's better.
after you hit it, there's something nice.
Yeah,
yeah. No,
a
Blaster has
necessary
cool
evil,
animation.
if you will. Yeah, I just, man,
Apex is fun in dungeons, at least.
yeah,
Or when it direct
Yeah.
crits in raid.
like
I love standing next to the cannons in the laser hallway of puppets, and just hitting the whole line with Apex Arrow.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, look, if they add more multi-target fights, Apex gets better too.
yes,
So
So there
they
you
need
go.
to get on
That
that.
that's what'll save Bard.
Yeah.
I want to
3
see
out of the 4 fights next tier need to be multi-target.
a really cool thing that I wish would happen next year too, is instead of having tethers that need to be kept apart, having tethers that have enemies get pulled together.
Oh, you mean enemies?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That need to get
oh,
pulled together like O12S. It was like the tether either had to be taken, like the two bosses had to either be pulled apart or pulled together, depending on buffs.
you said kind of like in T, or I
Yeah.
guess what Living Liquid was back then as well. You kind of keep depending on what the boss does,
Like-
you have to spread them or keep them together.
Yeah,
Yeah, they could probably put that in a Savage fight at this point.
yeah. Like it'd probably be an interesting mechanic to kind of see, or it's like you like, especially just because of the whole last X pack, right? Anytime you saw a tether, it's like, oh, you have to keep them apart, right?
Yeah.
And they just kind of bamboozle you in Pandemonium, where it's like you see the tether, oh, we got to keep them apart, and the tanks just get literally one shot, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
well then,
Yeah.
I guess we need to do it a different way. That way
Yeah.
was wrong.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean that would require them to have a multi-target fight in the first place,
Yeah.
which they haven't done
Like-
in Savage
It-
outside of it's just been ad phases, right?
yeah.
Because
I mean,
even Ifrit and Garuda, you couldn't hit the other one
yeah,
after they assigned debuffs.
Right. I mean, yeah, even after they assigned debuffs, I'm pretty sure any dots on them from you got nullified.
Yeah, so you'd pretty much you line up your apex and hit both of them,
And that was it.
before they apply. Yeah,
And I don't think the dots really mattered in the ad phase of Shiva.
yeah.
I could be wrong.
no, you
but
couldn't. You dotted the water ads.
the ones
like-
that might live long enough.
I think I forget. God, it's been so long.
I could
don't
see
even
how
remember.
it look redundant. I don't know, like because I'm trying to reply to what I mean is saying. It sounds like it could be redundant. I don't feel like. I mean, I feel like it feels like kind of a waste to just not be able to use AOE buttons, in fights where you have more than one ad.
It would
You know,
depend on the mechanics,
yeah.
you know,
Like
like
I want that to be a thing.
because like they could have a Shiva type ad phase where there's more ads and it'd be really boring, or they
Yeah.
could have a more unique ad phase where we're actually doing stuff, moving around a bunch more,
Yeah.
kind of like the E7S one, except did different mechanics and you're not just going in a circle. It
Yeah.
all depends on what they do with the fight.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I agree. But that'd be a neat little thing to include in Savage for next
Yeah,
time. Give or like make an ad kind of floor, but like make it not feel like shit.
Give
yeah.
me ads, but don't give me A2.
Yeah.
Put all my groceries in one bag, but do not make it heavy.
I don't think we're gonna see something like that again.
Yeah. Is there some way? Not take. I can try to keep them together.
Yeah,
Uh,
or I mean, like
okay, I can
turn
see the
three in coils. Like we're not gonna see that kind of
ads
thing
try to
again.
separate, and there's some way you can try to keep them together. What if you just made the ads tether to like non tanks, like DPS, like a DPS and a healer or something like that, and they had to like bring them together like that.
So like force positioning
Yeah,
on
forced
on the
positioning.
group, and then you have a
Yeah,
bunch of mechanics that knock you around. Instead of like a bunch of knockbacks,
yeah,
you
something like
know,
that. That'd be cool.
play around that.
Yeah,
You can do something like that, and just kind of throw in like the phantom train type barriers, so you have to use those because you obviously only have one knockback mitigation every
yeah. Or like, yeah, you could
couple of
like pick it
whatever
up,
it is, 90 seconds.
like have it be have it like a pick upable like tether, the same way that fuck, it's O10S, right?
Yeah,
The shield.
Midgard
Yeah,
Summer. Yeah,
yeah, something like that, and like, you know, then suddenly ranged Phys is like amazing for that because they can position all they want and be a pseudo tank, and like have aggro matter because it'd be hitting the tanks obviously, but like make the positioning dependent on ranged or something like that.
yeah. I mean they're adding expedient to Scholar, so maybe they have some heavy movement stuff in mind
Yeah,
coming
Now,
up, or not.
maybe, but
Yeah, or not, and that was their best idea for Scholar.
I mean,
They threw it in.
you can't say, like, oh, Bard has an Asuna, so clearly there's going to be tons of debuff heavy fights where the healers
Oh.
are going to be over. No, you can't
Well,
design any fight that heavily incentivizes you to
yeah.
do one job. That's the antithesis of how they design
Well,
fights
no,
nowadays.
that,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no, but they can't balance around it. Although, I mean, so they added it. They added the ability though. So
I'm hoping that they are going to have something where Scholar can be like, ooh, it's my time to shine for the
yeah,
6 people in Endwalker still playing Scholar. It's like, look, you move faster. Sage says, I don't need to move anymore.
yeah.
My shields are bigger. No one cares. It's not the size of the shield, it's the motion of the parse.
Yes.
okay.
It's the lack of
It's the motion of the meter.
it's the lack of fairy ghosting.
Brad, I appreciate the effort, but I don't think it's working.
Brad is tired.
Mm.
You will shut up. Also, machinists should have a jetpack.
Oh, there was this really
Unpopular
fucking
opinion.
there was this cursed idea that I saw kind of this one person say, where it was like they wanted machinists this was back in Stormblood, where they're like they wanted machinists to have some sort of like what was it, some sort of like grappling hook, and then like they'd have to manually position the rook auto turret places, and then like use that for their movement and shit.
So
Like,
Rook would become sort of like a ley lines in terms of between the lines.
You can interact with it.
yeah, and like it sounds interesting, but I there is no way that you can incorporate that in any meaningful way. I don't think.
Yeah.
I
Like,
mean, like
how would you control where you go?
how often does a Phys Ranged even need like
That yeah,
Yeah.
it's like machinist you can now hop onto the automaton queen and you have a gap closer. That's your capstone. It's like,
I
fucking I just walk
see.
there.
I wanted what I wanted for Shadowbringers, and like I don't care that it's not part of it, but like I was like, I want either. I wanted the machinist automaton queen to like just upgrade into a straight Gundam, and then I got Sage, so I don't even care anymore. But
Hmm.
there's that. Maybe post Endwalker for the next X pack, you turn automaton queen into an exosuit, and then the machinist suddenly becomes a Power Ranger.
Your burst phase replaces your current hot bars
Yeah,
with your mount
Oh,
hot bars.
dear.
just make it cursed as hell. Yeah,
That'll save machinist.
10 out of
Yeah.
10.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I mean, I think with that, we're pretty much done.
Having
Right.
established that it would be rad if we had a Gundam, we hereby close our discussion of the physical range jobs in
I
Final
mean,
Fantasy XIV Endwalker.
like I said, I got Sage, so like
I know.
the Gundam thing is good now. Like I don't need Gundam because I got one.
You can stop calling Yoshi P every day asking him where Gundam is.
Yeah, my dad works at SE. He told
And
me.
he says that not only do I get to be a Gundam, I get to be a healer Gundam. Does it make sense? No, fuck it. It was my birthday.
Yeah,
Sage is somebody's birthday present.
yeah, it was mine, obviously.
There you go.
Scholar Main's birthday present.
Yeah,
That can't be true. I mean, it is, but it's still sad.
yeah. Yeah.
On that
Did
terrible
we leave
note.
it? Did we leave anything out? I don't think we left anything out.
No, I think we covered
Yeah.
most. We covered the change. I mean, there's not a ton of changes for the jobs. I mean, they're all getting
True.
what, two abilities and then some upgrade traits.
We still did find a way to talk about it for 2 hours,
Well,
which is great. I enjoy stuff like this.
yeah,
I enjoy talking for 2 hours.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think?
yeah. It's fun, kind of fun to
To dish about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of. I mean, because we haven't played with any of this stuff yet. Just kind of
Yeah.
think how it'll
Mm.
play out, how it'll like what they could use to be better than they currently are.
Yeah.
Jetpack.
Well,
All Phys Range need a gap closer. Bard should be able to like put itself in its bow and fire itself like an arrow.
Or just make it a blink. You know,
Mm.
just a repositioning tool, like hop over walls, hop over
they-
gaps.
I mean, they have repelling shot. If they could repelling shot over gaps, that would be funny, but not as funny as watching them repelling shot into a hole.
Yeah.
I'm just
You're
glad.
never gonna see red mages backflip off the stage anymore
Yeah.
in Endwalker, so
Yeah.
fucking Bard has to step up and die.
See, that's the trick. Just they don't have they don't have any damage on repelling shot, so you
Just
don't
use it
need
on cooldown.
you don't need but you don't need to use it. So
I need you to use it.
you don't have to risk yeeting yourself off if it does no damage.
Mm.
Make repelling shot instead. Give a debuff to the enemy. That like
I mean then you'd use it.
yeah on right before
Yeah.
raid wides.
Make repelling shot of 50 potency, jump back.
Oh no.
No.
Yeah,
You
I
still
don't-
have to use it.
Yeah,
See,
you do. And it's
like-
annoying. I mean, it was really good in that one specific case in Shiva with the ice floor, because you would jump back.
It gives a trigger attack
out-
effect.
Well, no, you would jump back out of the Akrais, and you wouldn't have to slide all the way across with the rest of the group.
And now it sends you 50 yalms backwards. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Right into the next game.
Oh boy.
right into Final Fantasy 16. You get early access as soon as you hit jump shot
As soon as you hit
repelling
repelling
shot.
shot,
Yeah.
Oh man.
it's a 2-year cooldown.
Tell me how it goes, Neko. Final Fantasy 16.
I mean, that's probably the last time I used it. It was 2 years ago.
I think Ulti used it quite a bit actually,
Yeah, no,
and he was really good about it.
he used it on that one Shiva uh, part. Yeah,
I believe he used it multiple times in Shiva, if I'm
he's he's
recollecting.
he's more committed than I am
He's
to
like
that
he's
to
like our
that bit of
Dragoon.
uptime.
Our Dragoon fucking loves whatchamacallit. Oh god, what is the name of that ability?
I was just worried I would
Evasive.
mess it up, so I just didn't. I
Elusive, rather.
played it safe,
Hmm.
hmm
but I
Fucking,
mean,
Yeah, you
I'm
basically use
afraid
your
to
flag
back
it.
up
tap as your
Red
combo
Mage.
range.
Yeah,
And that's a potency game that I'm giving up sometimes. It's weird. I won't have to worry about it in 3 weeks.
Oh man,
Or
and
more
Walker's
than
3 weeks away.
yeah.
Two
Well,
and a half.
Like
a little,
two and a
little
half
less,
weeks, right?
little less. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the 19th.
Mhm.
Something like that. Yeah, I think. I think. Yeah, I mean, like looking forward, you know, I don't know who's gonna be around. Maybe it'll just be a me and Brad kind of a thing. But like after we do the tank talks and caster talk next week, I want to do like a Shadowbringers retrospective. Would be a really cool thing.
You mean just on the fights or
Just everything, you know,
just
like kind of
everything? Right?
reflecting on it,
Yeah,
and like overall how it felt, how Shadowbringers felt.
Brush up on Shadowbringers as a whole.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I mean, I had a lot of in between the EXs and Savage and
Yeah.
It was a whole ass expansion. There's a
yeah,
lot of shit in it.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the base MSQ everyone
Hmm.
loves and big part of why we're seeing so many people playing the game now.
Yeah.
Aside from other games having their issues.
Dropping
we-
a bit of the ball.
Yeah.
Sexually
Yeah.
harassing people.
Well, that's kind of an issue.
Just a little bit.
Putting it lightly. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think really, you know, just as a whole, I think most jobs, if not almost all of them, are in a good spot heading into Endwalker. And if they're not, I mean, we'll be expecting reworks anytime.
And
Anyways,
if not,
so
there's always Sage.
Yeah.
there's always Sage, yeah. But yeah, I think
But
if
you shouldn't you shouldn't talk before you've had a chance to gab on about every job. I
yeah,
would imagine some Dark Knights don't have a Sage equivalent.
Hmm.
yeah, I forgot that. And we'll probably talk about that next week, anyways. But like, it'll be interesting. I actually haven't talked to Sai about it. But I'm wondering if he's actually going to stick with Dark Knight.
He's
I-
not.
I think he was going warrior, or he's planning to go warrior.
Okay.
I mean, he's gonna level all of them, but
Yeah,
he's
same.
he was probably gonna main warrior.
Yeah.
But he was kind of a warrior main for the most part before Shadowbringers anyway.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. I think on that note, though, before we get even further off topic, we should probably call it here.
That's fair.
Work for me.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, I think it was a really good. I think it was really fun and really good to talk about all this stuff again. Kind of hear Neko's voice more extensively. You know.
This really was just a trick to hang out with you more, Neko.
Yeah. 100%. Shameless.
That's fine. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I mean, these things are fun. I mean, this is the best time, like right before an expansion, then going into like starting a new expansion.
Yeah.
Everything's new, or even if it's not changed a ton, just kind of trying to figure out.
Dreaming about what's to come.
Yeah, just looking forward to just playing the new content, seeing the new fights, and,
Yeah.
and how these jobs all fit into that.
I'll be
So-
interested to see if like Because like right now, my preferred DPS for each role are samurai, black mage, and it's kind of a toss up at this point between machinist and dancer. To see if anything will change, kind of heading into, um, like once we're kind of at this point in Endwalker, getting ready for the next six pack, because like I'd never in a in a million years would have dreamed that like going into Shadowbringers, like coming out of it on the other side, playing
You'd be a
machinist
healer
and
main.
dancer, and also being a healer main. I'm still very much intend to be a healer main through all of next X pack, but it'll be interesting to see if like my other off roles end up changing, or if any other job kind of catches my eye more than what I currently play.
We're
Hmm.
gonna get to the end of Endwalker, and we're just gonna be co-tanks somehow.
I
Looking back, like, how the fuck did we ever play healer?
nah, I mean my reasoning for playing healer is probably true to who I am more than like being a tank. Um,
Yeah, but what if you come up with like a really sick paladin glam?
I mean,
Like a
I
really
I
I'm
have a
one
sick
who's
tank
chosen
gland that I
skippy
want.
cult.
I just need to go back into 12, but no one wants to go back in there with me. Like,
'Cause as soon as I go back into 12 and get you that chest piece, I lose my co-healer. I'm not an idiot.
no, I mean, if even if I went paladin for the story of next X pack, I'd still come back as a fucking sage. You know this. I know this.
And then you're like, wow, actually, Gundam isn't nearly as cool as 6 Confitors in a row.
No, it's actually cooler. Sorry.
Anyway,
No.
we are starting to branch off topic, and I can't stay up for another hour. I just
Yeah,
can't. Not on a work night. Sorry, lads.
it's okay. I only got to hear your voice like twice this week. It's all good.
We'll make more. Oh, you hear me more this week. I'll make several recordings and send them to you.
Yeah.
Strip feed you
Yeah. I
like
mean,
a little baby bird.
semi off topic, but did you ever end up sitting down to read that book?
No, every time I tried, I fell asleep.
Oh, well,
I will make a better effort this week
okay. That's
during
cool.
my waking hours.
So yeah,
But
okay. But anyways, yeah, I think
await,
I
await Brad's book report next week.
yeah, I think right now is probably a good spot to end things. So, once I finish this crafting stuff, I'll actually formally end the stream slash podcast slash whatever, and figure out what times what I mean like the export and stuff. But yeah, um, yeah, I think that'll be it for this evening. For everybody that's watching, thank you so
We
much for
gotta,
coming by, listening to
we
us
gotta
rant
have
for 2 hours, 2.5 hours almost, about ranged and how much and how little is changing for the ranged folk. Next week, like I said, we're going to be doing tank and casters just to allow for just enough time for the
for a
retrospective,
retrospective.
for a quick
Mhm.
little retrospective regarding everything Shadowbringers and looking ahead into Endwalker. So I hope to see all of you there. And yeah, have a good night. I will see you all tomorrow when I start streaming again for Monday, Tuesday. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Nighty night.
Later.